Hob Crumb woke to yesterday's bake clinging to the beams overhead, which told him he was home, not out somewhere the fog was making a nuisance of itself. The crumb rooms backed onto the store, one thin wall from the kneading board, and in the grey before dawn, the ovens beyond it lay cold, in the particular way a man could feel in his sleep after feeding fire long enough. He rose, pulled on yesterday's wool and apron, and walked the 3 steps from bed to work. The brick oven took the first sticks, with a complaint that sounded almost personal. Hob coaxed it, as his master had taught him. Chemistry first, patience after. And when heat settled into the stones, he put his hands in the dough and felt it answer. That was the whole of religion, as far as Hob was concerned, if anyone had asked him, which they did not. Dough either rose honestly or it did not. Flour either held the shape he gave it or made a mess. He worked the first batch by feel more than sight, while fog pressed at the shuttered front. And by the time he drew the second bake, he had flour to the elbows and amber oven light on every shelf. The bell on the door did not ring so much as sigh. Elsie Briar came through with Oren's basket on her hip, and fog still beaded in her hair, and Hob was already counting loaves onto the cloth before she had finished shutting the weather out behind her. 6 for midday, he said. 4 for the travellers, and 2 more besides, because that corner table of Oren's eats like it pays. He wiped one hand down his apron and looked at her over the loaves. It does not pay, does it? It pays in time, Elsie said. Oren keeps the accounts. Oren keeps secrets and calls them accounts. He said it fondly, the way a man complains about weather he was born in, and he meant both halves of it. As he tied the cloth over the basket, the flour hanging in the air above the kneading board drifted together into a pale ring, held there for the space of a breath, and sifted down again, as though it had never been anything but dust. Hob did not remark on it. You might as well remark that the oven was warm. Elsie counted coppers into his floury palm from Oren's purse, nodded once, and went back out into the fog, with the basket riding her hip, toward Ned's block and Thomas's candles, and whatever else kept the mug upright. Hob watched the door a moment after she had gone. Elsie Briar made a kitchen run smoother without announcing the fact, and Hob was glad Lena had her to watch. Then he went back to the board. By mid-morning, the square beyond his frontage had found its noise. Ned Marrow's voice carried once, arguing with a customer about a cut, and then quieted the way Ned's arguments usually did when Ruth's hand found the till. Thomas whistled something that might have been the start of the old rhyme, and then thought better of finishing it, which Hob appreciated. Children got the verse right often enough without help. He left the second batch under a damp cloth and took the flour barrow toward the river. The walk was short and familiar. Market Edge, a stretch of packed road, less fishy once he passed Kale Stretch, then the mill, where the wheel spoke loudly enough to drown gossip. Edda Quern had sacks waiting under the eave, flour to her elbows, like Hob, and twice as loud when the stones were turning. "You're late by half a bucket," she said, without looking up from a toll mark scratched on a board. "Elsie came early by half a mug." Edda snorted. "That makes you even then." She hefted a sack onto his barrow, with the economy of someone who had lifted wrong once and never again. "Grind's clean. Wheel argued at dawn, and then thought better of it. Check your stones first. Stories never." "I bake, Edda. I do not argue with rivers." "Lucky you." She dusted her hands, looked at him properly at last. "Tell that niece of yours the mill does not care how calm she wants to be on someone else's floor. Dough still has to rise." "I'll tell her nothing of the sort." Hob said. She already knows. He rolled the barrow home, through fog thinned to wet gauze, and the flour from the mill went into the bin without ceremony. The rest of the morning belonged to customers, a farmhand smelling of wet sheepfold, an unnamed woman who counted coins twice, Pella Green, leaning in the doorway with surplus sage that Hob took for savory loaves, because refusing Pella's greens was how you made breakfast worse. You passed a roll over the counter to a child, trying very hard not to look hungry, asked no copper for it, and was spared the rhyme. That was nearly as good as the bread. Near midday, Lena Crumb put her head through the back door, hair escaping its tie, and her sleeves already showing the mug's damp. "Uncle." "You have stew on your cuff," Hob said. She looked down, flushed, scrubbed at it with the wrong motion.
"Elsie says the noon benches are filling. I thought if you had a spare round for the traveller by the wall."
Hob set a warm round in her hands before she finished, and wrapped it in cloth himself. "You still visit the board when the mug allows? Good. Do not let Oren teach you that secrecy and accounts are the same word."
"He does not teach me that."
"He teaches everyone that. Elsie just pretends she is not listening." Hob tipped his chin toward the square. "Go on. Vanish when the floor gets sharp. That is the lesson that matters." Lena nodded, as if he had handed her a second apron, and vanished the way she was learning to, which was almost vanishing, and not quite. Hob listened to her boots fade, and found he was smiling for no reason the dough required. The afternoon settled into quieter heat. He scored loaves and banked coals. Thomas put his head in long enough to borrow a crust for tea. He claimed he was not yet making, and Hob told him rest day tea was still 2 mornings off. Thomas said waiting improved the leaves, a lie that let them avoid admitting they liked finishing each other's lines. Ned did not come over. The silence from the meat stall could be as companionable as talk. Toward evening, a pair of unnamed market hands bought day-old at Hearth, and Hob wrapped them as carefully as the morning's best. Fog was gathering against the shutters again, the same customer as the morning, still not knocking. He swept the board, set the starters for tomorrow under clean cloth, and felt the oven's breath ease from work heat into banked sleep. Across the thin wall, the crumb rooms waited. Lena would come home smelling of stew and Daisy, and whatever the mug had overheard that she would not repeat. And Bod would ask her nothing about customers, and everything about whether the bread had held. He blew out the front lamp last. For a breath in the dark, the air above the empty board held the pale ring from morning. Then it was only flour settling where flour ought to settle. That was fine. Bread was chemistry, and chemistry was honest. Tomorrow the oven would want feeding again, as would the town. And Hob Crumb would light the first fire for both.